This episode is sponsored by SKS Luxury Appliances. If you've spent time around Signature Kitchen Suite, one thing designers notice right away is the technology. The interface feels familiar and intuitive because it's the same engineering that comes from LG, the company that produces the systems used in many of the luxury vehicles people drive today. Clients recognize it instantly and know how to navigate it, but SKS is also investing in designers through their Designer Rewards program and by sponsoring IDC. If you're specifying kitchens for serious cooks, give SKS a look. Learn more at sksappliances.com. SKS, built for people who truly love cooking. Hi, I am Lori from To The Trade for Interior Design Community. I have Niall here with me. Hi, Niall.
Hi,
How's it been today?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Great. I wanted to give you a heads up. The feedback on Isabel's bachelorette party, it went off without a hook. It was really funny. They dressed up as Revolutionary War soldiers. They went to Boston on a pub crawl on the Freedom Trail.
Yep.
They had a lot of fun. They got really drunk.
Which makes it even better, right?
I got a lot of pictures. It was fantastic. I thought it was really, really funny. They got free drinks everywhere. People thought it was the funniest thing they'd ever seen. People took pictures with them all night long. It was really, really cute. And they loved it. They thought it was so special. I can't imagine it not being the most memorable bachelorette party that exists because
Nice.
how weird is that?
Now, my question is, how about the reluctance? Like, were they like after
There was
fully
a
converted?
reluctant person in the bridal party who really was like, "Are you sure we don't want to dress up in cute dresses and go to
Yeah.
dinner?" And if you knew Ashley, she's a history buff and she is a nerdy girl. They wanted to literally ask constitutional questions at the bars.
But were they converted? Like the people who were reluctant, did they think after the fact, were they like, okay, this was the right thing to do? This was a
I
great.
definitely think they were converted. They were
Okay,
like,
good,
"Whoa, this
good.
is the right thing." I don't know if they still loved it, but they knew Ashley
It
loved
was
it,
great for
which
her,
is
and that's all
that
that
was
matters.
what it was for because it's
Yeah.
her wedding and her
Yep.
bachelorette party.
Yep.
So it went
Exactly.
really well. We were very excited to see the photos. And Isabel had one funny story. She was walking across the street and she had just had a martini. And she said there was a priest walking towards her and she was shaking people's hands, just like you do when you're a little tossed. And she came up to the priest and she goes, "Father." And he said, "Founding father." And it was really cute.
That is so cute. That is so cute. I love it.
Yeah, it was so great. So we will get right in. We have an amazing guest today, Tracee Murphy. Woo! Tracee, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, thank you guys so much for having me today. This is so exciting. I've been just so anxious to come on here and talk to you guys.
Hey.
I'm Tracee Murphy. I'm the Design Biz Therapist and the founder of the Designer Launch. I'm also the CEO and principal designer of Trademark Interiors. So I've been in the luxury design world for 26 years now. And I teach designers and brands how to leverage psychology for a competitive edge. And so in that, we talk a lot about emotional intelligence and how to grow your business and make it a little bit easier on you along the way using psychology.
Ugh. I mean, that is so. I remember the moment we met, we were introduced by Lee Hirschberg before Design Edge. And, the moment we talked about it, it was kind of instantly, I get it. I understand that it's a part of the process and how designers can ask the right questions. I just read that Brene Brown book that had to deal with really difficult conversations and how you manage difficult conversations. And I thought about how interesting it was that we're not really diving into that as much as we probably should as an industry.
For
So I was
sure.
so on board. And I loved that you were part of Design Edge and got to speak there too, because I think this is a really important topic. What do you find if you're starting in the beginning and you just are meeting the client, how do you use the tools that you help designers learn to create a better experience with those potential clients?
It's such a great start because we do need to incorporate these things from the very beginning. And I think your point about Brene Brown is so relevant because we spend so much time reading things about relationships and how to improve our lives in that manner outside of work. But the reality is we need to incorporate these things just as much in our professional lives as we do our personal lives. So starting at the very beginning of our projects, and, we need to make sure that we as designers, as business owners, have a decent level of emotional intelligence. And sometimes that's the hardest thing to start with because you have to start with yourself. And before diving into the projects and diving into the clients and those dynamics, where are you as the designer business owner and how are you coming to the table? So what is your ability to read the room? What is your ability to kind of manage your own emotions? And then obviously reading the room and recognizing what's happening with others. So it always starts with ourselves. So that's kind of maybe a tough pill to swallow for some, is that it really doesn't start with the client, it starts with us. So taking a look inward and, doing work that we need to do to ourselves to bring us to a level to be able to really bring that out in our clients and make those projects more successful.
I think that's really important. I mean, I find that a lot of designers aren't really thinking about how their process affects other people, or maybe how, they're in the weeds of like, this is just the way we're going, and we get so laser focused on the plan and where it needs to go that any disruption to that feels like they're not listening. And so it can get really triggering, I think, for designers too. But they have to imagine, like, this could be the person's first time ever doing this. So,
There's so much to learn at the beginning of a project.
Yeah.
And that's where the emotional intelligence really comes into play, because being able to be a great active listener, to really hear the things that they're not saying. Are we reading their body language? And there's a lot to dive into. When you're talking about someone's home, they're not going to give it all to you at your first meeting, and they're not going to give it all to you in the questionnaire. Like, you have to dig and to really read between the lines and learn about the dynamics of the family and be sensitive to what they are asking for, but not verbalizing.
Right. And I think that we also have to address, the elephant in the room, that sometimes we're not the most trusted, as far as clients are concerned.
No way.
And so how do we build that? How do we explain to them what our goals are and that it's not, driving up the price of the project? That's not the goal. The goal is the home functioning the way it needs to function for the client. And that's a really tough thing. But I mean, that trust factor has to be really looked at immediately,
Exactly.
and really set up so that they understand what's going to happen in the sequence that it does happen and how you are delivering the service, so that you can build that trust ahead of time,
And there's so much embedded into that statement. But, trust is not an overnight thing. It's not earned, on day one in the first 5 minutes. It's something that is built. And there's a lot of tools that I teach designers to use. And it's really, we have to remember consistency is key with trust. Leadership is 1000% high on the list. Like, our role is to lead. And if we falter in that in any way, that trust bond gets broken a little bit, and they're counting on us to take the reins and move forward. And if we show any signs of not doing that, then they start to question, like, why, what, how?
Yeah. So at the beginning, one of the things you and I discussed was that you like to do a personality analysis with your questionnaire, which I think is genius. And I've actually seen a lot of coaches steal that from you already.
Okay, good.
So I just want you to know that. But it's really smart. And I think that understanding, even, creating those first emails and all the documentation you've got is a great, it's information that you could be feeding an AI that could help you learn how to talk to people a little bit better, so that you're understanding, like, their personality type might not be your personality type and might not receive information in the same way that you do. Yeah.
And probably that's true most of the time.
Right.
We know how difficult our personal relationships are, and these are even more complicated because we're not starting with that automatic bond or attraction or whatever that is. And learning more about the personality through AI has gone a long way in really improving how we're managing our projects and our clients. So taking a questionnaire, a lifestyle questionnaire that we've developed over the years and really, are happy with and has so many great questions on the project. But the answers actually reveal who they are, how they make decisions, how they want to receive information, what level of control they want to have over the project, how they manage problems, how they, work through issues within the team and all of that good stuff. So really taking the questionnaires and information that we have and feeding it through AI and allowing it to give us a little bit of a psychological profile on our clients will really take you so much further down the road in learning and gaining trust with that client.
Yes, yes. And I can imagine that the clients are, do they always know that they're taking a personality test? Do they understand
No,
that? Okay. Yeah, because that might make them a little freaked out, I would get that they are, but it does it, how, what aspects of the project does that actually interact with? Once you've got a personality type of the client, what are the next steps how does that change your behavior? I'm thinking of it as like a choose your own adventure book.
it is. It is. And I think with interior design, as we know, every project is different. And what we've been learning over the years and is process is extremely important. And we need to have the systems and processes in our business that are tried and true. And they keep the train on the tracks and keep the team going and all of that. However, because there's nuances with every design project, there are nuances with how we handle those clients. And it doesn't mean we change process or we change systems. It just means we might tweak our communication. We might tweak the way our meetings are structured. We just make little adjustments in communication is more or less the strategy to make sure that we're really communicating what we need in a way that they can receive it and that trust gets built over and over again. So we want to keep systems and processes intact. We're not talking about like reinventing the wheel with every client because, that would drive us all right over the cliff. So we cannot do that. So just taking the information and making sure that we're like, okay, this client really does like a high level of control and they're saying they don't, but really the personality assessment tells us they do. So what does that mean for us? Well, that means that we're going to need to give them a little bit more information in our updates and what we're doing so that they can learn to relax, that we have the process and the strategy in place to make their project successful. While some clients might need like the general overview. Hey, this week we're working on lighting selections for the living room. The control client might be like, we're working on lighting selections for the living room that are at least 60 inches wide, and they're going to be more in a polished finish. And we just give them a little bit more information so that they can be like, okay, they understood what I'm saying and they know what they're doing. So again, not changing process, just tweaking a little bit of the communication, a little hand holding.
I like that. I mean, I know that through the years of interior design community, it's come up that lawyers and engineers are probably the most problematic, right? With designers, and that is the scary factors. Have you had lawyers and engineers, and do you think that that's changed for
That is
them?
hilarious because actually I have a brand new client who is an engineer and I met with her last week and we're just on plan review from the architect. And she was going through and explaining to me like what her, what she was struggling with the latest round of plans. And I stopped at some point and I said, your engineer is coming out. And, she was like looking at the plan. She was like, the outline of the house, it was like too many jagged edges around the outline of the home. And I was like, you're never seeing this. This is not an issue for how this floor plan functions, is kind of like these jagged edges. Yeah. And she was like, but what do you mean engineer? Like, why do you mean is that coming out? I'm like, because you're looking at things so microscopically and like such down to detail that you're not able to zoom out and look at the big picture. Yeah. So we had a conversation about how her profession really has trained her to look at this project in a way it doesn't work. It doesn't work to lead her to a successful interior design project. And so we had a really nice conversation about that. And she laughed and she was like, I so appreciate the fact that you you shared with me why I was fixated on something that is going to make this project unsuccessful
Right.
at the end, and why. So it's a great conversation, but each, career path has their own special skill sets. And
Yeah.
so it's just another point of everybody brings something a little different to the table.
Well, I am first really impressed, right? I think that being able to lightheartedly bring up the elephant in the room is so smart for any designer to be able to learn how to tackle that tactfully. How do you say your profession, while very valid and you're going to have a watchful eye over some of the details, and that's great for your project, but here's how it affects the project outcome, which, if you're not seeing it from our perspective and our experience, we're not able to deliver what you want if we're focusing on the details. Also, the price goes up, right? That's the
That's
huge
for
part.
sure.
That's the thing that we're not really thinking. The more detail oriented you are, the more picky you are about every single small detail, the more the product's going to cost. In some cases, it doesn't get finished. I think sometimes the designer's in this tough spot, right? They want to deliver what the client wants and needs for the project. But the client is also in the driver's. It's like two people are in the driver's seat at the same time, trying to
Yes.
steer the car, and how you manage that so that you have that trust so you can drive the car the way you needed to drive it affects so many different aspects of the design. And that's a huge struggle for every designer I know. I mean, I don't know a designer that doesn't have that possibility. And then when you add in the personality differences, it's really hard to manage that and have these open conversations.
It's very true that so many designers struggle with it, and me included. I struggled with it a lot early in my career. And I think early in the career is kind of the key to that, because we want to please. We want to create something that they're going to love and be happy about, but we're relying on them to know more than they know, and that's where we kind of go sideways. It's where I went sideways in my career early, of letting them have too much control.
Right.
So learning this balance of, I am the professional, I am the leader, I value your opinion. Your opinion is obviously a critical piece of this, but my job is to learn about what you want and need and create that for you, share it back to you, fine tune, and not this interactive design that a lot of people do. Like, let me take your hand and we'll go down to the tile store and we'll look for 5 tiles, and let's go over to the fabric store and do that. It's not an effective way to work. And it's some clients, like, I won't take jobs like that anymore. Early in my career, I did, but I won't do that anymore, because it's not effective. You can't effectively lead a vision of a project piece by piece with a client in hand. They've hired you because they don't know or have the skill set to do that. And we do. So, but we need to close the door and go behind the scenes and pull all the magic together before we can make this the wow that it really needs to be.
Right. So when you have, okay, I'll give you another example of a client that's, I think, comes into the design community a lot as difficult. A person who thinks they're a designer, or they think that they already can, they just need you to help them. They really want to be involved in the process. You don't take a client like that anymore, do you?
I do not.
Okay.
I do not. And I feel like that's a very specific business model, that if you work that way, you have to really structure your business around that particular process, because that's a different creature.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very different thing.
Yeah. And do you find, is there anything that when you find that your process, has it ever let you down in that you've gotten the project, you've brought them in, you thought they were kind of like an ideal client, and then learned through the process that you just can't get forward with them? They're just keep on.
Hell yes.
The roadblocks. How do you handle that? How do you handle that when that happens?
It's so painful.
I know, right?
They sneak in,
Yeah.
They just really do. They really sneak in.
Because everyone thinks they're easygoing, right?
They all think they're easygoing. They think they don't want control, and they sneak in. And, I'm 26 years into design business, and they're fewer and fewer as the years go on, but they do still sneak in, and it's really hard to reset those expectations and take back control. But that's what we do. And I will say that once we have that client and we're working through it, it is a much more difficult process, and it's really hard to go back to like, hey, it's hard to take back the reins once you've let them go a little bit. So that's where those boundaries really come into play. And when they start to want to take control of the project, of you not letting it. And at that very first sign, really taking control of the project and making sure that all expectations are really clear and that we kind of hold them at bay. Like, we're going to keep you involved 1000%. And, maybe that's a client then that you're, instead of presenting like, here's the full design, we're like, here's the full design with a couple options. And then that kind of gives them a little bit of control without the like, let's go to the tile store and look at 8,000 tiles on the wall. And then it throws your project into a tizzy.
Do you ever explain to them why you don't do that? And
All the time.
Okay, all the time. So you keep them informed as to why you don't. What is your answer for that?
It's too expensive. It takes too long, and it's not going to end up in the best design.
Right.
And those are big, important things that are extremely true.
Right.
When
When
you're doing that.
No, very true.
Absolutely.
Do you ever get clients that they actually are on board and then they have a partner or a husband who swoops in like maybe a few months, 6 months down, and they all of a sudden want to change everything? Do you?
Yes. Yes. I feel like you just like have some insight into what happened to me over the last year.
Oh,
Yes, we have clients that are like, oh, my husband or whatever is not going to be involved and I can just do whatever I want. We're like, that never happens. And so typically, yeah, we'll get all through the project and then sometimes it comes up with money. But yeah, then they'll come in and be like, oh, but I don't like that chair. And I do want leather. I don't want fabric. And I do want this. And so in my design business, this all goes back to boundaries and setting expectations. So we do require that we ask who the decision makers are, and those people have to be at the meetings, period, end of story. So if like 6 months down the road, this person was never involved and they come in, that is a conversation before the meeting. Okay, let's just reset expectations here because we signed a contract. We've had these 3 meetings. You've signed off on design style, presentation, investment levels, all the things. And if we're going backwards, that's going to change a lot. It's going to change our timeline. It's going to change our design fees. And it's going to change what this project looks like at the end. So we may need to really circle back to the beginning and really, putting the ownership of these changes and decisions back on the client instead of it making it look like we didn't handle the project well is really important in kind of giving them that, okay, if you want to do this, here's how this is going to affect you. Like, we're staying the course in how we work in our process, what we discussed, what we promised. If you're going to throw a wrench in, that's fine. We can, talk about how this affects us, but this is really on you to make a decision if you want to proceed with these changes or not.
Right. Because
I like that because you're not resisting. You're saying, here, we'll do it. You just choose how you want to do it.
Exactly.
I like that.
Because
And
what happens with that.
Really bigger than that, there are consequences to this decision that are financial. And that is a real thing that's going to happen. So you have to also consent to that too.
Exactly. And it always ends up being the designer's fault because if it starts to go sideways, it's
always.
So yeah, I'm a big fan of like making sure that's not placed on you as the designer. Life happens, and sometimes life happens and changes get made for much bigger reasons than I just changed my mind. And it's important for us to be able to pivot and work with our clients to a successful conclusion. However, any life changes on their end, it's not our responsibility to lose money or lose sleep over timelines or budgets or project. Our job is as a consultant to them, as a guide, as a leader in their project, is to get them to the end. And we will do our best with whatever they throw at us, but it's not our responsibility to, flip our world upside down because they had a change.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that one of the hard things for designers to learn why it's hard to learn that is because of those response times. And do you take a pause when that is going on so that you can formulate how you want to react to that instead of just immediately? I think that's where I think designers maybe do this incorrectly is they respond right away and they don't really have a plan
Mm.
as to what should happen next.
Right. So going back to our emotional intelligence,
Yeah.
we have to take care of ourselves and our businesses, our employees, our process, our structure. Our job is not to do backflips every time a client calls or every time a client has a change of heart. We need to stay professional and lead the project as a professional. Now, I say that like so confidently and like this is what I do. But I can tell you, like the first 10 years of my career, that was not happening.
Right.
Like you're scared. I was a single mom. I had 2 babies. I had to feed them. I was like, I need money. Let me get this project done. And I put up with a lot that I should not have put up with. And, I'm here saying all these stories through hard lessons that I've learned over 25 years. And the sooner that you can kind of dig your heels in and stick true to your boundaries and your process, it protects you, it protects your team, and it truly does create the best projects in the end. It really does. And shifting your mindset from, especially if you're a solo designer, shifting your mindset from like you're starving or you just try to make this work and you're trying to like build your business and to do all of that. Think of what you're doing in terms of what an established business does and how did they get to where they are and how do they maintain and grow these amazing projects in their business. And it's because they're holding their boundaries. They have elevated their emotional intelligence. They're communicating at a level that makes their clients feel heard and feel seen and feel respected. And the earlier you start that, the better.
Right.
So yeah.
Now, here's the hard part. I'm going to throw a really, really hard question for you. So much of that confidence is earned confidence over time. Like, I
Yes.
know this is the right process because I've done it and it works. But at the same time, we really do want to cut down. I think both of us are at the goal of like, how can we get designers to get there earlier in their
I
career?
know.
Save them the time of doubting themselves, people pleasing, all of the things across the board that steal money from their business, really. But at the same time, they're desperate for the photos. They're desperate for the income. Like it's so tricky. How do you balance that?
It's super hard. And it's not only an industry problem, but it's a consumer problem, right? Because the consumers have this idea of who we are and what we do
Mhm.
that, was made much worse through maybe some TV shows, maybe some social mediaing, that take the kind of the professionalism away from what we do.
Mhm.
And deciding who you are as a designer, because there's a lot of different ways that you can work, and however you decide to work, is just really again maintaining that this is a business. I'm not your personal assistant. I am not on call 24/7, and having some protection around a legitimate business and not a hobby does that protection and puts you in a safer place to be able to grow and to make those better decisions. And you're right. It is very much of like the confidence comes from learning all of these things the hard ways. And those of us that have been through it and have experienced that want the designers to learn faster,
Right.
to learn faster, do this. It's really, I understand that it's super scary and hard, but the most important thing is always and forever grow your own emotional intelligence. And what that does is it's in your personal life and your professional life. Once you really can hold your boundaries and you can communicate your needs and you can communicate your process, it just makes everything that much easier and it makes everything go that much faster. You're going to avoid burnout, you're going to protect your families, you're going to protect your team, and your projects are going to go smoother. Your clients are going to be happier. You're going to get the better pictures because the bumps in the road will start to settle down.
Are there any questions you ask yourself or that you can exercise your emotional intelligence on a regular basis? What do you do to grow this for yourself?
Self-awareness is the biggest thing and it's so hard.
So hard.
Yes, taking stock and emotional intelligence and growing it is recognizing when your emotions are happening. Now, when you have a high level of emotional intelligence, it doesn't mean you don't get angry or it doesn't mean that you don't get upset irrationally. It just means that you recognize it and you can pause. You're not going to write that email tonight. You're going to take a breath. You're going to let that sink in and you're going to just calmly respond to that another time.
Or maybe write it, but you don't send it.
Exactly. Yeah, we all know that. Write it. Don't put them in the address line. Yeah. Yes.
Get those emotions out, but
Get it out.
don't
Get it
put them
out.
on someone else.
And
Exactly.
would you say that also too that practicing emotional intelligence can be a proactive thing as well? It's not always have to be reactive. Like I can't remember if it was my project manager or somebody else said to me years ago, like what you need is what you need to do your job. And that's period. There's no comma behind that. You know, if you're doing a job for somebody, you don't have to explain why you need the things you need to do a great job. And so I kind of feel like piggybacking on what you're saying, like sort of being self-aware. And that's from a proactive standpoint, I would imagine, right? If I know that I need X, Y, and Z to execute the job really well, then I'm just going to stand on business when it comes to having conversations with clients about that, right? From jump, I would imagine, right?
Exactly. And I love that
Yeah.
stand on business because
Yeah.
I think that's the piece that's gotten lost over the years in our industry and on the consumer side is the business part of it. I'm sure every designer in our community has had the experience. I've had it countless times of somebody calling and saying like, well, do you charge a markup?
Oh my God.
You know, and
Yeah.
and it still to this day just blows my mind. And so
Yep.
now because it's just I've been doing it so long and now it just annoys me when people say it. I'll say, yes, this is a business and I run this business to make a profit. So yes. And I'm just kind of like in their face about it because I'm like, you're clearly not my client. If you're
Right.
asking me this question, I know this isn't going any further, but I would like to educate you a little bit that this is a business. This
Yep.
isn't a
Right.
hobby. I have a family to feed. I have employees to pay. They have families to feed. Yes.
And just like
Yes.
every other business
Just
that
like any business.
also, your steak you're getting at the steakhouse is marked up. Obviously, when you're eating it, they're not just selling it to you at cost. I
Right.
didn't
Exactly.
break it to you. The car
Yes.
dealership you bought your car from made a profit.
Yes.
A
I
big
know.
one.
How
The
did this
clothes
get
you're
lost?
wearing, the microphone
Yeah.
I'm using, the lights I'm using, they all made money here. Why is it so
think it's
hard for
and
designers to make money?
I think it's true. Like I don't know where that got lost because what you said is like how we own some of it, but also the public owns some of it. I remember a colleague of mine telling me years ago that she was out on a consultation and the prospective client said, "Well, how much do you charge?" And she told him, and he said, "Oh, you charge like a doctor or a lawyer." And she said, "No, I charge like a professional." It was like he had it in his brain that she shouldn't be charging what it's like I don't know where this sort of idea has come from, but
Where,
it's
yeah.
out there.
Where
It
did it
is.
come from? My latest mission is like I want to get, Lori, ASID, IDS, like can we just get everybody on a public campaign to discuss and advertise about the profession of design and the cost? Can we just have like a giant national campaign where we all get together and have
Well,
this campaign?
that's the reason that I did the video
I know.
content. That's the only reason I'm doing it. I want people, I'm teaching video content at Design Edge day 2 because I think we can't wait any longer for anybody to
Right.
save us. We have to save ourselves. If only 10% of interior designers made, 12 videos a year where they talked about the process. This is what it is to be an interior designer. This is what it costs to hire an interior designer. We would be educating the public in a huge way. That's 10,000 in the world. That's 100,000 designers. In the United States alone, it's 10,000 interior designers. If you did 12 videos, if we did 12, really, like here's what it is.
Right.
Here's what the process looks like. I think people would understand, but it's going to take all of us to start sharing what it is designers do. And it can't be just like the portfolio images anymore. It needs to go deeper because that's what will save us. It's explaining to people. I had an interesting thing that happened. I had an opportunity to refer a client to a designer, and they asked me, "Can you just give me an interior designer?" And I said, "No,
I can
I
give you
need to know."
100,000.
And they were, it was a brand that I work with, and they were like annoyed with me. Why can't you just give me a couple designers' names? Like it's not that big a deal. I'm like, I need to know what your scope of your product is because there are some designers who won't take. Like, are you asking for someone to help you pick out wallpaper, or are you asking for full service design? Are you asking for remodel? What is this project? How big is it? What kind of designer? Are they kitchen and bath educated? Are they interiors? Like, what are they doing?
Right.
So all of those things are important. And they were absolutely annoyed and that I made them, it was for their president of their company. I made them make an appointment with me with the president of the company. I talked to him for an hour. I educated him about what the design process is. And
Good.
he did hire someone I recommended. It's gone beautifully for her.
Right.
But she's like, could you just like talk to every client before?"
Yeah, I mean, I would think they would be happy that you did that, that you took the time to make sure that it was a mutually beneficial
I
relationship on
literally
both ends.
can't give them that information though. That's the thing is they don't understand. Like that's what was so weird. You were
Yes.
being really rude with me, but I can't give you a designer unless I know what it's for because there
Yes.
are a million different designers and then what they
Yeah,
do are different.
yeah.
So, and they couldn't understand that. That was really hard for them. They were kind of like they thought I was being difficult. you know, like I'm not being difficult. I'm actually trying to help you.
Right. There's
But
more to it than there's
there's
just
more
more
to
to
it.
it. Yes.
If you're, I need to know what you're asking for. It's like saying, I need pants. Just
Right.
give me pants.
It's like,
And
great,
I'm like,
okay.
well, what size are you? What style? what store do you want to go? Do you athletic pants? Are they going to be dress pants? How tall are you? There's a
Yes.
lot of things I need to know about what you want before I just give you pants.
That's the missing piece for sure. And I just had a friend do that, sent me a picture of a kitchen and she's like, white or green? And I
Oh,
was like,
I
I
hate
need a
that.
lot more information. What's the floor?
Exactly.
What's going on in the house? What's not like, I'm like, I have literally 600 questions for you before I can
Right.
answer that question.
Right.
And like hours, 600
Yes.
questions and then hours of.
And then you have to pay me for that.
Yeah.
What I do for a living. Because that's another thing that happened. I had a designer come up to me. She's like, I think this was her first 3 years in the industry. And she was basically asking, when can I start charging? Because I've been doing a lot of friends and family stuff. And when can I start like making a profit? And I was like, 3 years ago.
Yeah, yesterday.
Yeah.
And I
What?
wasn't trying to be mean. And I think she was definitely like, but I was like, if your friends and family love you, they would want you to make money doing what you're doing. You don't have to do it. You can, if you need a few portfolio images to start, people do
Right.
work on their own homes or
Sure.
things like that sometimes, but you don't need to be doing full on projects for people for free ever. So, I mean, if
Never.
you're going to pour any money into something, pour it into your own house, number one.
Absolutely.
But if you can't do that, then you should be working for someone else, or you can't. I mean, who can exist for 3 years? Probably having a second job and then doing design work.
Yes. And
free.
that's where that like hobby business comes into play. And I agree. Like if you can't pay the bills, then then this could be your side hustle, or you have a side hustle while you're growing your business so you get to the point where you can pay your bills. But we should not be doing this for free.
No.
And to get those first couple precious good images that we need to start sharing, if you are working for friends and family, you still should be getting paid. It could be at a lower rate than you would be charging anyone else, but you definitely should be getting paid. And I would encourage people to work more on vignettes rather than full rooms.
Right.
Because the vignette photos are just as powerful, if not more, and less time on your part to get into your friends or family's home to kind of like create a little vignette for them. That's like, oh, let me just do this cute little, let me get this corner all set up for you, or, an area in the kitchen, or, whatever it is. But those vignettes really go a long way and kind of speed up.
You on track. What are those that you could give to our listeners?
We are very systems and process oriented at my design business, and everything is very well documented, full SOP. So we have every step of every process documented, both in our like task management software. We use ClickUp, and then we also have it documented in an Excel spreadsheet just to like keep that in the archives for reference or training new employees. But we have a process for pretty much every single thing that we do. So whether it's that initial outreach through, gathering inspiration, to how we format presentations, to how we make reselects, everything has a very specific process, but I think the processes that light me up the most and kind of make me feel really good are those customer experience processes, because those touch points with clients are what create those feel good moments that clients want more of now. So right now, like when we're talking in the luxury world about luxury used to be status symbols, and now we're really talking about it's more internal, and it's about a lifestyle, and it's about comfort. And so, but the processes that kind of carry them through. So that would be what to expect. And then we repeat the what to expect process documentation to our clients. So there's never a surprise, and they always have something to look forward to. So whether it's like today we're doing a design style presentation and we have donuts because it's donut day apparently. So little treats in there, but we've kind of set it up so we have lots of touchy-feely stuff for them to do today. And then when we leave today, we set them up for excitement to wait while we go quiet for a little while and dive deep into our design, which could be like 6 to 8 weeks. So trying to keep them excited and engaged along the way and make sure they understand each step of the process. And then little gifts and little reminders about how much we love their home and their project and what special things we're creating for them is really what keeps the clients like just so endeared to us throughout the project. And it just keeps them excited. So I think kind of incorporating those into the mundane processes and systems that we have for like, our everyday tasks or a finished schedule or, something that's a little bit more routine in the design world, and making it exciting for our clients and making that as memorable and special as we can for them, because it's much for them is about the process as it is about the end product.
How often are you communicating with your clients?
Weekly. So we do weekly we do Monday. And I've had this debate with designers like Fridays or Mondays or we do Mondays, do whatever's best for you. And we have a simple template that is, what we did last week. Here's a list of what we did last week. What we're going to do this week. Here's a list of that. Any homework that we need from them, outstanding items. And then we end with a cute little quote about we value their partnership and we treasure their trust. And we make sure that that is ingrained in our messaging so that it reminds them.
Yeah.
It's just a little reminder. So it's a template and we don't alter from it. So they know they see a full update of last week. They see a full what's coming this week. Hopefully it answers all of their questions that they might have come up with over the weekend or things that were on their mind. So it just has really eliminated a lot of emails and phone calls or even heightened emotions along the way about like why something's taking so long. So it goes a long way.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you find that, so that's where you're saying your process stays the same, how you communicate is the change depending on how that client is and what they need from you. So you might be more detailed in that or less detailed depending on, if you've got a client who's very much hands off, doesn't want a whole lot of communication, do you just line item that much more briefly?
We love that client so much. Love that client. We don't shorten the updates for clients. We keep that consistent. And, but for people that need a little bit more, we'll add just a little bit more. If we understand that they want to know a little bit more, like, oh, if we say we're coming to do a measure for closets on Tuesday, those people might want to know what time on Tuesday, how many people will be there. They just want a little bit more information. Right. Those people, right. They just need to know.
Yeah, they need to know.
They just need to know.
So you try to think of all the things that they might ask you in that more detail-oriented person and provide those answers before they ask them. So it's like part of the anticipating the needs.
It is, for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
How would you say having this emotional intelligence has improved your business? Are there any measurable, like revenue dollars in how you work? Is it actually financially beneficial?
Yes, for sure. I would say there's two things that stick out to me in a really big way that's super important to our industry. And one is avoiding burnout. And it's huge. It's a really big one. It's so huge.
I have this weird dream before you continue. I have weird, someday somebody is probably going to take over IDC because it's such a big thing and it's going in a huge direction and we're international. I mean, it's just like it's this beast that I didn't know I was building. So, but I always thought a next chapter situation for me would probably be to have like a cute little house that I have as like a artist retreat for designers. I think that would be like somewhere they could like just, just get
Catch their
free,
breath.
catch their breath, rejuvenate. I think there are a lot of those kinds of businesses for other, actors and
Sure.
writers and artists, but not designers, which is really strange to me.
Yes.
I always thought that designers need it more than anyone. They're so stressed out.
We have trouble. We tend to carry the emotional burden of our clients. And it is such a problem in our industry. And so emotional intelligence will decrease burnout and will help you be happier and healthier. And that goes to your families and your teams. So that
and
has
your
been
actual health too. Your actual physical,
health.
like heart attacks, heart disease, like all of the
actual health.
stress.
Yes.
Yes.
Fun fact, I had a heart attack at a client presentation when I was 48 years old.
No.
Oh my God.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Yes,
and
I did.
Why this was like, I'm changing my life forever.
I'm sure that woke you up.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a wake-up call.
Yeah.
So it is real. And I did, I was in the grind and I did all the things and it doesn't work.
No.
It doesn't work for anybody. It doesn't work for yourself and it doesn't work for your client. So the emotional intelligence will change how you function in a healthier, happier way.
Yeah.
Period. That's like, it's a proven thing. So bringing that on and really doing as much as we can to grow that is critical. On the profit side, once you have those boundaries in place, it tightens up your processes like crazy. Like you find all the like loopholes and all the money sucks in your business when you start to hold your boundaries and you start to hold your team accountable, yourself accountable, most importantly, and keep your clients in line with your processes. Everything tightens up and your profits grow. In my business, my profits grew by double over the period of 5 years when I really got serious about implementing emotional intelligence into the business. So it's huge. It can really make a big difference.
Amazing to see that because you're no longer holding yourself at this, you're not emotionally driven, you're data driven, which is a totally different thing.
Yes.
I mean, this is working because I have this result. And
exactly.
And this isn't working because I have this result.
It's funny that people can see it in their personal lives way easier than they can see it in their professional life.
Oh, we have designers who don't see it in their personal lives.
They don't see it anywhere.
They don't see it anywhere. I mean, there are a lot of hot mess designers out there.
Yes, I know. I honestly, they should go work for somebody else just to get a little, get it under control and figure it out because it's a super complicated business and to try to figure out all the nuances of it and, grow a business and learn yourself, how to manage this is hard. So, getting some experience under your belt with somebody who kind of has it together is valuable.
It is valuable.
It's valuable.
It's also really, I just want to say it's really hard out there. I mean, I have designers who are messaging me all the time for, do you know anyone hiring?
I know. I know. We get a ton too. We get a ton.
So hard. I think that we're churning out, I'd be curious about the statistics about what we're turning out for interior design students and how many jobs there really are in interior design.
Yes.
And that, that's always tricky. But I think that there's also directions we can go because there are those clients who want, that maybe wouldn't fit for you, Tracee, because of your systems, but maybe a system could be made for those designers or those clients who are harder to manage, because there's a lot more of them than the clients who are willing to commit to the process.
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a list of designers, local designers that I love and adore, and they're constantly on my referral list and that I'm feeding and talking to and happy to send work to. And, it's what makes the world go round here. So we have to look out for each other.
Absolutely.
We are in this together for sure.
Yes.
Are there any parting lessons that you might have for our audience? Are there books they should read or their podcasts? I mean,
There's
you
a
have a
lot
class
there.
too.
Yes.
So tell
There's
us
a
a little
lot
bit
out
about
there. We
that.
have Designer Launch has some classes available in the psychology bundle. So our first group of classes that we focused on are psychology of interior design. So it's a big, broad overview of all the different areas that it touches, which I love because it kind of gives you like a greater understanding of how pervasive this really is. And then the other classes that we dive into are conflict management and selling luxury. Those two, gigantic, because
Huge.
those are the two pieces that we're probably dealing with most often. And conflict management, I love so much because it's really about learning the value of conflict. And it's not something that we talk about on a regular basis. Nobody's just like, oh, I'm so excited there's a conflict because it's going to be so valuable. And you
No.
don't do that. But my favorite thing to say is like, if someone's willing to stay in conflict, then they're invested in the relationship. And that is really important because you can't work through conflict with people that aren't invested. So
Mm.
yeah, so we have some great resources at the Designer Launch. So follow along there and check out our website for more information on our classes. But yeah, there's so much to grow your emotional intelligence. Start with yourself.
Yes, yes. And anytime you can, I know you do some speaking at different trade
Yes.
showrooms and with some brands. So if you see Tracee Murphy up there, join, go, because you're going to be learning what
Thank
you
you.
need to do to make your business more profitable and your life more healthy. I mean, who doesn't want that?
That's right.
That's what I want.
It's a dream.
Well, thank you so much, Tracee. We'll make sure everyone has all the details to be able to follow you
Great.
and find your information because I think this is so needed. I mean, I don't want to
Absolutely.
dwell
Yeah.
on the health aspect alone, but I know designers who've had heart attacks too. I know designers who have had strokes, and this is a very stressful business. So learning how to manage yourself in that process is invaluable. I mean,
It is.
the
Sooner
very
the
first
better.
thing anyone does for
Yes,
themselves, for sure.
absolutely.
Well, thank you so much. This has been so great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This episode is brought to you by Curry & Company. Designers, you know the moment. You walk into the room and the lighting stops you in your tracks. Chances are it might be Curry. Curry & Company has built its reputation on pieces that feel sculptural, collected, and timeless, from hand-finished chandeliers to statement lamps, furniture, and accessories. Their collection is top-notch. If you haven't explored their newest introductions, take a look. Visit curryandcompany.com,